Thanks, Fiona. Good evening. Welcome to another week on Look North, where we're talking about the grief and shock felt by ice hockey fans. A terrible accident claims the life of ice hockey player Adam Johnson in Sheffield. Fans unite in mourning.
It was quite a traumatic and horrific event to actually watch. So I've come here today to get things right in my own mind.
We'll talk about the support available for the thousands of people who saw it happen. Also tonight, a jury hears a clinical support worker wanted to kill as many nurses as possible when he took a pressure cooker bomb to Leeds St James's Hospital. Alpamare Water Park in Scarborough goes bust, but has public money been lost? And when you've pimped your pumpkin, we've got some great ideas for treats, not tricks, with the leftovers.
Another unsettled week to come. Showers or longer spells of rain. Some strong winds on the way later this week too. Join me for that week ahead forecast.
Good evening, thanks for choosing Look North. The fiancée of an ice hockey player who died during a match in front of 8,000 fans in Sheffield has paid tribute to her sweet angel. Nottingham Panthers' Adam Johnson suffered a cut to his neck from a skate during the game on Saturday. Supporters who were at Sheffield Arena have united in their mourning, and they are being urged to seek additional support because of what they witnessed. With our top story tonight, our sports editor, Sally Hurst.
On Saturday night, 29-year-old Adam Johnson died playing the game he loved. Today, his fiancée paid tribute to him on social media, saying, "My sweet, sweet angel, I'll miss you forever and love you always." His mother also posted, "I lost half of my heart today." The Nottingham Panthers player suffered a serious cut to his neck by a skate during the game against the Sheffield Steelers. The game was stopped in the 25th minute as medics rushed to help. He died later in hospital. This morning, Sheffield Steelers fans came out into the rain to pay their respects, laying flowers outside the arena. There were 8,000 people watching the game. Many are traumatised by what they've seen.
It was felt throughout the whole arena. All of a sudden the crowd went from cheering, from watching their game, their heroes, to just absolute silence as we didn't know what had just witnessed in front of us. And there were a few of my family and friends that collapsed and fainted because of what they'd just witnessed. It's quite scary. I do think that there will be a lot of fans that may not return after what they witnessed. I don't want to be one of them because I love this sport.
Many people are describing the incident on Saturday as a freak accident, and that's because this kind of incident is extremely rare. In America, there have been 2 similar incidences, although both those players survived. And there have been calls today for a safety review of the game.
In ice hockey, there is lots of protection for players, but there are certain areas of their body that are still exposed. And depending on what level we're talking about here, as a junior, for example, you do have to wear a neck guard and you do have to have a full face cage on your helmet. When it comes to being 18, there's certainly a lot of pressure and stigma around, wearing that neck guard and wearing your face cage, and it's not the right way to do. Player safety must come first.
And this afternoon, the English Ice Hockey Association has announced it will make wearing neck guards mandatory from the new year. But in the immediate aftermath, the priority for players and spectators must be to come to terms with what they've seen. Mental health charity Shoremind sponsor the Steelers and are urging supporters to seek help if they need it.
Almost across the board, people are going to be affected by trauma here. And the important thing is that they don't try and bury it, or they don't have an attitude of just get over it, because that could be extremely damaging. Struggling with a trauma, don't try and get through this alone. Speak to your support group, whether it's your family or your friends or your parents. Speak up.
As family and friends of Adam Johnson start to grieve for their huge loss, the ice hockey community also comes together to find a way through their collective trauma. Sally Hurst, BBC Look North, Sheffield.
Thank you, Sally. I've been speaking to Peter Spencer, the BBC Radio Sheffield commentator at the game, and he talked me through just what happened.
So this happened in the second period. It was a freak accident in the 35th minute of the game. I was stood at ice level and saw a coming together between Adam Johnson and a Sheffield Steelers defenceman. We now know that Adam Johnson suffered a fatal cut to his neck with a skate. You could see that there was clearly a lot of blood on the ice. He took a couple of steps towards the Panthers bench to try and get off as soon as he could and get to his medical staff. And then he collapsed in front of the players' benches. Now, the Steelers doctor and the physio from the Panthers were straight out onto the ice to attend to him. Then paramedics arrived and some fans who are trauma nurses and medical professionals were allowed on the ice to help. He received CPR on the ice. And the Sheffield Steelers captain Robert Dowd got both sets of players to form a ring around Adam Johnson to screen the fans from what they were seeing. It was difficult to watch. I've been covering hockey in Sheffield for 11 years, and to see how the players were visibly affected, it's an incident I hope I never see the like of again.
I assume this will start a new debate about safety in the game. It is a very physical game, and that's part of the thrill of watching it, isn't it? Players already wear a lot of safety equipment. Do you think people will be asking for them to wear more now?
I think there are many questions like that at the moment. This isn't the first time this has happened. And as you mentioned, ice hockey is a physical sport. There's lots of bumps, bruises, and you will occasionally see players that have injuries to their lower bodies where skates are involved. And as I said, there have been 2 cases of this happening in the NHL over the years. Clint Marlachuk, a goalie for the Buffalo Sabres, and also Richard Zednik, who was a forward for the Florida Panthers. Both had similar injuries to the neck area. Both survived on those occasions due to the work of the medical staff. I think there are definitely questions about whether neck guards or collars for players might be worth it to avoid further skate injuries in the future. Are modifications necessary to the medical backup and the paramedics and an ambulance on station for events like this, where it's a high risk, it's a physical sport? There are questions about whether or not young players coming into the game at the junior level might be put off, whether parents will continue to bring their children down to Steelers Panthers games or ice hockey in general.
8,000 fans, as you say, watching that. Some of them will have been children, and it is going to stay with them. Has there been any news about support for them?
I think everyone who was there will carry what happened with them for some time. And I think there is support out there. The Steelers have tweeted that there are links to NHS support should they need them. The advice is to go. If your children are asking questions about it, seek out help, talk about it with them, but talk about it in an age-appropriate way. There are ways that you can explain this to children. And I think it's important that if they feel like they need to talk and they want to talk about it, that you should try and maybe explain what happens, but seek proper NHS support should you need it.
Peter, I know it was truly awful what you saw. Thank you very much indeed for your time. Now, some more main news coming into the Look North newsroom. A court has heard a patient certainly saved many lives when he talked down a man with a pressure cooker bomb outside a Leeds hospital. Prosecutors told a jury that clinical support worker Mohammed Farouk was intending to kill as many nurses as possible at St James's Hospital in January. Farouk has already admitted a number of offences but denies a terrorism charge, as Nick Garnett reports.
Today we've been hearing the prosecution opening the case against Mr Farouk, who is a 27-year-old hospital worker. Jonathan Sandiford KC described Farouk as a radicalised lone wolf terrorist who'd gone to the hospital to commit a murderous attack and seek his own martyrdom. When he was arrested, Farouk was found with a holdall. Inside that holdall was a pressure cooker, also along with 2 knives and an imitation firearm. The jury's been told that the clinical support worker has already admitted a number of charges relating to this case. Now, as he stood outside the entrance to the hospital, he was approached, it was the early hours of the morning, he was approached by a patient who was outside having a cigarette, a man called Nathan Newby. He talked to Farouk and realised what was going on. He managed to get the man to walk away from the entrance to the hospital where he was shown the imitation firearm. Now, he managed to talk him down and calm him down, and then managed to borrow Farouk's mobile phone and phone the police, who came shortly afterwards and arrested the hospital worker. Now, today, this is just the opening of the case. The full evidence will be heard over the next few weeks. The trial's expected to last until the end of next month.
As our reporter Nick Garnett at Sheffield Crown Court. Elsewhere today, hundreds of workers in Yorkshire have lost their jobs without warning after the window company Safestyle UK suddenly stopped trading. The firm, often recognised for its prolific television advertisements, is based in Bradford. Staff at the glass processing site in Barnsley were told the news by megaphone in a car park this lunchtime. Kathy Killick was there.
The moment hundreds of Safestyle UK staff were assembled in a car park to be told they'd lost their jobs. An administrator called in by the company borrowed the union rep's megaphone to break the news.
Leaving no option but to place HBAS into administration.
Many of these employees have worked here at the double glazing manufacturers in Wombwell near Barnsley since it was set up 30 years ago. They were told to retrieve their tools and leave.
I've worked for the company for 20 years. They've just kicked me in teeth. I've asked him the question in there. My question to him was, am I going to receive my holiday pay and my wages next week, where I've worked for? And his answer was, he didn't answer me.
Totally disgusting the way we've been treated. Even being notified outside in the rain and not getting the answers that we want.
I've worked here 24 years, love.
What are you going to do now?
Well, I've got to try and find a job, isn't there? You know, hopefully Barnsley Council will help all these lads. It's not just me, it's people that's got family and, you know, they've got bills to pay, especially coming up to Christmas.
There are many good reasons to look at what Safestyle UK have to offer.
Safestyle UK were at one time the #1 provider of double glazing in the UK, but attempts to find a buyer for the firm foundered last week, and staff were told by text to stop work. Administrators were called in over the weekend. In a statement, they said, "These are really challenging times for companies across the home improvement market. After seeing strong sales during the COVID lockdown periods, many companies are seeing trading being impacted by the cost of living crisis and soaring costs."
I think there's some real questions to answer about how this has been a really profitable company, and we understand was paying dividends just last month and millions of pounds of orders to ending up like this. And whatever's happened, treating employees, many of whom have worked for decades here, is completely unacceptable.
750 employees will be able to apply to the government for their unpaid wages and redundancy payments, but around 1,000 more self-employed subcontractors will be out of work without a penny. Safestyle customers are advised their orders will not be fulfilled. Cathy Killick, BBC Look North, Wombwell.
And if you've placed an order with Safestyle, you can find out more information about what this means for customers. That's on the BBC website and news app. Search for Leeds and West Yorkshire news pages. Still ahead on tonight's edition of Look North. The mouldy flat, which is still damp 18 months after the couple living there pleaded for help. But first, it's emerged that Bradford's facing a £68 million gap in council funding this year. The bulk of the deficit, £45 million, comes from the Children's Department, which, as you know, is now run by a trust. But the local authority still has to pay for it. Council leader Susan Hinchcliffe says she's written to ministers asking them to improve how local government is funded. Next tonight, an inquest has opened into the death of a woman who was killed by her obsessed stalker near Chesterfield. Gracie Spinks was killed by Michael Sellers 2 years ago after she'd reported his behaviour to police. Ollie Constable reports.
Gracie Spinks was 23 when she was stabbed to death by her former colleague Michael Sellers in June 2021. Her family arrived here at Chesterfield Town Hall this morning to hear the opening of her inquest. The court heard how Sellers was convinced the pair were in a relationship, despite Gracie telling him on a number of occasions that they weren't. He was described as obsessed by the coroner. On the morning she died, Sellers stabbed Gracie in the neck as she tended her horse at a yard near Duckmanton in Chesterfield. A forensic pathologist said the injuries on her arms and legs showed signs of her desperately trying to defend herself from being stabbed. An air ambulance doctor who was sent to the scene said it was clear from her injuries that there were suspicious circumstances and called for police help. A knife was recovered near to where Gracie died, with Sellers being found dead a short distance away, having killed himself. Today, the family gave this statement describing the heartbreak they've gone through.
It's been very difficult for the family because they've been searching for these answers for now years. And every day is a new day and it's a difficult day, but they're now finally here.
The inquest is set to hear how the police investigated reports of Sellers harassing Gracie and could last up to 4 weeks. Ollie Constable, BBC Look North, Chesterfield.
Thanks, Ollie. Now, you might remember this picture from March last year when we visited Janice in Birstall. She and her husband had been living in a mouldy flat with 80% damp for 7 years. Now, a year and a half later, it's just as bad. The work that was promised still hasn't started, and it's having a severe impact on their health and mental well-being, as Phil Bodmer reports.
Janice Dawson and husband Andy have been living with severe damp and mould in their Birstall flat for the last 8 years. As leaseholders, they pay a management fee of around £1,800 a year to the freeholder, who is responsible for structural works, communal maintenance and repairs. In December 2022, they were told works to fix the problems were due to begin. But 10 months later, nothing has happened.
We were given the impression that works were going to start fairly quickly, and everything's just ground to a halt. Nothing's since then.
How do you feel about that?
I feel really let down. I mean, I feel like I've been sucker punched, because we got this letter from Places for People in December saying RMG have failed and we've told them to sort it. And I just thought, oh, brilliant, you know, really, really good. And then you just feel like you've been sucker punched again.
Janice and Andy's neighbour Paul says his flat also has issues with damp ingress. He runs up to 5 dehumidifiers to try and reduce the moisture.
When it rains hard like it has been and everything, all the ceiling goes bobbly and it all comes through here. All this is damp and it's all hollow, as you can hear it.
Janice has now contacted the Property Ombudsman and the Housing Ombudsman, who have allocated a caseworker to her complaint. Her case has also been taken up by her local MP, who says leaseholders deserve a better deal.
We're talking about basic living standards and basic living conditions. No one should be having to live with damp and mould. And, you know, Janice, bless her, has had wallpaper off the walls for 2 years because they were meant to come and do the work and they never came and did it, and she's still waiting, and that's just not acceptable. These issues are having a really negative impact on their mental health and well-being and their physical health and well-being.
Look North contacted the freeholders Places for People. They said wall cleaning and dehumidifiers will be offered in addition to works recommended in the survey. A spokesperson for RMG told us, "We are currently working with the owner to ensure work can be completed in the property. These works are significant costs for the homeowners, which we would always want to avoid if possible. But we absolutely agree that the current issues should be resolved with long-term solutions. We are sorry for the time this has taken and for delays along the way. A contractor is about to be appointed so the work can be completed, and we will offer temporary accommodation while it's underway."
It's just affecting every part of our lives. It really does. These property managers, they think they can do what they want to anybody and answerable to no one. And this is the effect it has on real people's lives. And there's thousands of people like me having to go through things like this with these property managing companies. Thousands. Sorry.
And we wish Janice and her husband all the best. Let's hope things do get sorted soon. Yesterday, the government have confirmed a bill to phase out some leaseholds in England and Wales will be included in the King's speech next week. The Housing Minister, Rachel Maclean, says the new bill will end the reign of rip-off freeholders and incompetent profiteering management companies. Now, there are calls for a full investigation after the closure of a multi-million-pound water park in Scarborough. The owners of Alpamare attraction went into administration last week. In 2022, Benchmark Leisure still owed almost £8 million of public money. That was after receiving a loan from Scarborough Council in 2013. Carla Fowler has the story.
It was meant to be the jewel in the crown of Scarborough's tourist attractions, but after just 7 years, Alpamare Water Park has closed its doors. Owner and developer Benchmark Leisure Limited announced it had gone into administration last Friday. Back in 2013, the then Scarborough Borough Council agreed a bailout loan to Benchmark of £9 million to deliver this project. £7.8 million of that debt has not been paid back.
If we have got an unsecured loan of taxpayers' money that went to a private company that haven't delivered, and we're finding ourselves in a situation where we could be looking at a closure of a major tourist attraction in Scarborough, then for me that is abhorrent.
Alpamare opened in 2016, boasting indoor and outdoor heated pools, water slides and later a spa. It's become integral to Scarborough's tourist appeal, especially in winter. It also hosted swimming lessons. When the shop closure was announced earlier this month, Super Swim Academy was teaching more than 150 children here. No alternative venue has been found, leaving owner Lindsay Priamaki without a pool.
And I'm devastated for everybody that learns to swim a pool.
Well, it's ridiculous. I mean, the easy option, isn't it, to just shut and wipe your hands of it, you know, and everybody else in Scarborough now is left with nothing, you know, and it does make me very angry. And it's upsetting because the business I've worked so hard to build up, it feels like somebody else has just pulled the plug on it.
It's been suggested high energy costs triggered the closure. Staff have been laid off without warning, customers left with useless vouchers, and with public money owing, there have been calls for a full investigation.
The County Council will be going through some of the decisions that were made, seeing what level of exposure there is and trying to see how we can move that forward, because the site is a wonderful site, but unfortunately now it does appear that the new North Yorkshire Council are left holding the baby.
So far we've been unable to contact Benchmark Leisure Limited, but the administrators have said that the situation is complex and different options are being considered, including the sale of the facility, but they stress that it is still early days. North Yorkshire Council declined an interview with Look North, but they said in a statement that they are liaising with the administrators and considering all the options available to them at this time, with a view to minimising the impact on the council and the Scarborough area. Finding a buyer for this attraction might prove tricky. Many local businesses here are already struggling to keep their heads above water. Carla Fowler, BBC Look North, Scarborough.
Thanks, Carla. Let's take a quick look at the weekend's football, but we will gloss over Sheffield United's 5-0 drubbing at Arsenal in the Premier League. But for the blue side of the Steel City, there is something to celebrate at last. Sheffield Wednesday have ended their run of 13 games without a win in the South Yorkshire derby against Rotherham. Michael Smith scored twice against his former club. Wednesday, though, remain 8 points from safety at the bottom of the Championship. In the West Yorkshire derby, it was a comfortable win for Leeds United against Huddersfield. All 4 of United's goals came before half-time, with Daniel James and Crescencio Somerville scoring 2 each. Leeds are now in 3rd place in the Championship, with a big test to come because they travel to runaway leaders Leicester. That's on Friday. And the only other winner from our region sides this weekend was Donny. A Joe Ironside penalty gave them the 3 points against fellow strugglers Grimsby. Now, of course, it's Halloween tomorrow, and are you hoping to impress the neighbours with a beautifully carved pumpkin like one of these? And do you know what to do with your leftover pumpkin? Experts are telling people to ignore social media advice that recommends dumping leftover pumpkin in the woods. Jane McCubbin has spent the day at Farmer Copley's in Ponty.
This is how it started at 6 a.m. this morning. Then we had the masterclass. My not-so-masterful creation is here. But Christian, my teacher, this is amazing.
Thank you.
Top tips?
Just to embellish the edges with a little knife to allow the light to glow through for that extra touch of detail.
It's brilliant. Have a fantastic Halloween. Happy Halloween. Finally, the team is out in force. Good morning, everybody. Hi. We want to get some top tips now on what to do with your pumpkins when Halloween is over, and protect wildlife. And look at this, these creations, how to use your pumpkin flesh. This is Heather from Farmer Copley's. Heather, talk us through the recipes.
Okay, so this is our pumpkin pie using the pumpkin flesh. Obviously it's roasted down. Then we have this we call it pumpkin bread, but it's more of a sweet treat. And then we've got over with Ted, we've got the pumpkin and goat's cheese quiche, which is still warm. Shame it's not smell-o-vision.
It's a shame it's not smell-o-vision. We'll get some. But we want to talk about the wildlife, don't we?
Definitely.
Because I mentioned in our first hit that some people are online saying use WD-40.
No.
On your pumpkin.
I understand why, because they want to keep their pumpkins looking amazing. But if you're going to use it afterwards, it's really bad for the hedgehogs and the wildlife. And hedgehogs, I say that because people wrongly, not meaning to be bad, give it to hedgehogs. We need to keep it up in the trees, so it's for the birds, because obviously hedgehogs are carnivores.
Don't leave your pumpkins
don't feed it
out.
to the hedgehogs.
Don't, absolutely not.
And also you'll get rats as well.
Dispose of them in your
in your gardening recycling, and then it becomes a compost, goes back on the fields exactly as we do, all our leftover pumpkins, green manure, whole circle.
Have a fantastic Halloween. Back to you in the studio. Happy Halloween for tomorrow, everyone.
Thank you very much indeed, Jane. Now, we do have a problem with a repeated spectre in manifestation in these studios. He's always haunting the corridors, and he's back regular as clockwork with the weather for.
Do I remember Swedes? Didn't you used to carve out Swedes?
No, I think the country of Sweden will be owed an apology if you
right,
want to do
OK.
that.
Let me show you this this picture. This was a beautiful sunset, and you can pick out Emily Moor there. Can you pick out Castle Hill down there? It looked nice when I saw it on my computer, but unfortunately the screen has lost the details, so we'll move quickly on. Name that lake or reservoir. Come on, Tom.
It's the one down from Moorhall Reservoir, isn't it? It's on the outskirts of Sheffield.
There we go.
It's where the sailing club is, and I've forgotten. That's
well done, well done. I've hung him out to dry live on television. Now, let me show you the addresses on your screen if you've got any pictures you want to send in on Twitter, on Instagram, and on the Weather Watcher website. So it's more of the same this week. It's looking pretty poor, cloudy, outbreaks of rain and drizzle from time to time. We've got that named storm Kieran. You've probably heard all about it. For us, it's nothing more than a spell of wet and windy weather as the track of the low is to the south of us. I mean, it might change, but that's the general idea. So, yeah, wet and windy weather, but we're not going to see the ferocious gales that's likely across northern France and across the English Channel. Now, there's the radar picture. It's been a poor day in many areas, just pockets of rain and drizzle. It's been gloomy. We've had mist over the hills, and that's where we pick up the forecast through this evening and overnight. Further outbreaks of rain and drizzle. There'll be mist and fog over the tops of the hills, so quite unpleasant conditions once more, and we are looking at lowest temperatures coming in at 7 or 8 degrees Celsius. Tomorrow's high water times then in Scarborough at 5:13, Filey at 18 minutes past 5. So tomorrow we're off to another grey start, cloudy. It might start dry. This is a weak weather front pushing through south, then west, and then eventually North Yorkshire. By the time it gets up here, just bits and pieces of rain and drizzle. Could well brighten up a little bit later. North Nottinghamshire, the Midlands, perhaps Chesterfield seeing a bit of brightness before that sun sets in the afternoon. But all in all, it's another pretty poor day for the end of October. Temperatures 9 to 11 degrees Celsius. Further ahead then, Wednesday, a wet and windy start. It may well turn brighter Wednesday afternoon with sunshine and showers. And then on Thursday, that's Storm Kieran Day, wet and windy, followed by showers. And then as we head into the weekend, there's more rain to come. May well be that we could see a bit of blue sky on Sunday, if you remember what that is, of course.
No, there's not really much point putting a candle in your pumpkin and then putting it outside.
Probably not, no.
No, you're going to have to use one of those electronic torchlights. Thank you very much indeed, Paul. That's as far as we go. We are back at 10:30 with the latest regional headlines for you. Thanks very much for your company on this Monday evening. Bye-bye.